Hello, my brothers and sisters, and thank you all for tuning in to another Truth, Love, Freedom podcast. Today I'm going to do this podcast solo, kind of like the first podcast you can find on the Truth, Love, Freedom playlist. It's called Truth, Love, Freedom, The Power of Three. This one is going to be Truth, Love, Freedom, Money, Power, and Freedom. So before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about what Truth, Love, Freedom is all about and the ultimate plan in the end. Truth, Love, Freedom is all about spreading truth, love, and freedom, about spreading the truth, about spreading more love in this world, and setting us all mentally, physically, and financially free one day. Through Truth, Love, Freedom, I want to start a community one day. Start a community where we focus more on the old ways. We get our own land, we get our own animals, we have our own garden, and we build something here, something physical so people can look at. It reminds me back to the pyramids. The pyramids are one of the only things that we can look back in ancient history and find all the knowledge that the people in those old days used to know. You think about Wi-Fi, you even think about books. Books can easily be burned one day. They could all be gathered up and burnt. The Wi-Fi, the internet, it could all go down one day because an asteroid hits a satellite, or people take the internet away from us. But if you build something physical, you can always go back to it and you can learn from that physical thing. So build something here that people can't take away. Build something here that can't be stripped of its knowledge, can't be stripped of its love, and build something here that symbolizes freedom for everyone. Within this community, one of my big things I want to stay away from is the cult mentality. I don't want any cult ideology welcomed within this community. I want this community main goal is to make a better life for the people within the community and building a better life for the future generations. When we start this community, it's going to have to be small groups, and you're going to have to be very careful with new people and letting in new people into this community. You never know someone's true self, so to let more people into this community, over time you could be letting in people that are going to lead to the downfall of this community one day. Another thing about this community, and something about life I've noticed, everything in moderation. You can't have too much of anything or it turns into a bad thing. Within this community, we all have to be humble with what we have. You can never have one person with such a bigger house than everyone else. You can never have one person with more resources than any of the other people. This will lead to shifts in dynamic. This will lead to a hierarchical system. Within this community, everything has to be in moderation. Another thing, when it comes to drugs within this community, we would have to keep the drugs out of this community since we are promoting a better future for the people within this community and the people around us. With working all the time, that has to be in moderation. You can't just have people working all the time to build up this community. You have to have a balance between work, life, and their personal time too. Another thing with moderation, you can't have one person be delegated with all the tasks. We must all learn from each other so one person isn't put all that weight on them. And also, if something happens in the future, we all know the knowledge of each person, and it's not one person holding all the knowledge. Getting into this Money, Power, Freedom podcast, the first thing I want to talk about is power. Where do we even start when it comes to power? I don't want to be nobody's boss, but I also have a weird thing when people are the boss of me. So it's kind of like an equality. That's what I like the most, whether it's in my everyday life, whether it's in my workplace, no matter where I'm at. I don't really like power structures. They've always turned me off in my life. And the authoritarian leadership, I understand the idea of it, but it always leads into a totalitarian leadership, where the people at the top want complete control over everything you do. Wouldn't it be better if we had a life that was more focused on tasks, like completing quests? Kind of like playing an open world video game, you have all these different quests, and every morning you wake up and decide, what quest do I want to pursue today? What do I want to get done for the community today? Wouldn't it be beautiful if this world or this community focused on having wise mentors, focused on having creative freedom, and rewarded the people that put in hard work? And everyone gets a reward in the end when they get to sit back and look at everything they accomplished within their life. I feel like we would all be working/questing a lot harder if we knew there would be rewards at the end. If we are being rewarded for our creative freedom, and if we had wise mentors to actually help and guide us, instead of people that know more than us or have power over us and they try to hold these things over our heads. One counter argument people make with creative thinkers or creative freedom, is that if everyone thinks so creatively, it will actually slow things down. This may be true, but in the long run, creative thinkers will come up with ideas that other people wouldn't have. It's the idea, work smarter, not harder. So a creative thinker might spend time coming up with a new philosophy or a new idea or a new technique to complete a task, and it may seem like it's taking him longer because it took him a while to come up with that idea. But then over time, if you have to keep repeating the task, the guy that came up with a new idea to complete this task will actually be getting it done quicker than you every single time because you're stuck in the old ways. When it comes to people not liking creative thinking and creative freedom, it's because they actually do want us to be dumb and fast workers. This is the idea that people in power, people in control, they would rather have us act as robots than act as actual humans or individuals with our own thought. This is the idea of brainwashing people and having everyone think similarly and having a hive mind society. With a hive mind society, you can easily turn the society against people that think outside the box and people that are actually trying to make a change or think creatively. And we notice this today. They're trying to replace so many jobs with robots because robots are easier to maintain. Robots are more easier to control than creative thinkers. So if they can't get dumb, fast workers, or if they do have dumb, fast workers within their company, one day they will replace you with the robots. But when it comes to creative thinkers and thinking outside the box, a lot of those skills cannot be replaced. If we get too smart, the people of power, the people that hold control, they'll realize it and they'll try to stop you. And it's the idea, there's more people like me and you than there are the evil, powerful elites that try to control the world. They don't want us to realize we're all a lot more alike than we're different. This is why there's always so many divisions in politics, in society, in religions, in so many aspects of the world. Division is good for the people that are powerful elites because division separates us and doesn't make us team together and work as one solid unit. With division, they can separate us and conquer us all one by one, take us all out one by one. But if you stand up as a team, if you stand up as a group of people all trying to make a difference, it's harder to stop this group. There's no loose links within this group. And I'm hoping one day this community can be similar to this. A bunch of people that are all band together for a common cause. A bunch of people that are all willing to put their differences aside to work together to make this world a better place. The next topic I want to talk about is money, so let's get straight into it. How can we ever catch up financially if there's other people that are already so ahead of us? And this is the world that we live in now. The further back you go, the easier it could be to catch up to people. But as technology keeps advancing, as different aspects of the market become more monopolized, it's harder for us to catch up. You can still catch up with certain great ideas or certain great creative ideas that you have to start new industries, new businesses. But for the most part, if you want to jump into a business or industry that already exists, you're not going to be able to compete with the people that have been controlling this industry for generations, or the people that were handed this industry down by their ancestors. So we live in a world that's very similar to a video games that's pay to play. If you have the money, then you can pay to play the game. But if you don't have the money, you can't even compete. Think about how much money it takes to get licensed for certain industries, to get licensed to own certain companies. Think about how much money it takes to get a startup company to the same level as some of these major and mega companies that exist within the world. It's this way, and a lot of the license and a lot of the grants that you need, a lot of the things that are holding you back, they are built there and they are put there to take you more time to get to where you want to be. And they hope you give up before you get there. They also do this so it's more and more difficult to get there in one lifetime. So it may take generations after generations of one family to finally catch up to other families. And the families that I'm thinking about right now are kind of like the Rothschilds, Andrew Carnegie's, J.P. Morgan, his family. A lot of these people that got their wealth in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, these people have made a lot of money off of the new industries that came out through the Industrial Revolution. Their families were the first ones to hop on a lot of these new trends. And now a lot of us and our families are left in the dust. We're left behind. We have to do so much work to even catch up and have a portion of what they have. You see, it's easy to become a millionaire if your grandpa was a billionaire. This just makes a lot of sense. And we see this a lot in the world. With an older descendant or older ancestor that was a billionaire, it's more likely all his grandchildren are going to be able to be millionaires. However, if your grandpa never had a pot to piss in, if your grandpa never had any wealth to his name, it's going to be a lot harder for you to catch up to these people who had a grandparent that was a billionaire. Like what I said before, the entry level to start a business or to even invest large shares into a business or have a real estate business, it's insane. They make this entry level harder and harder because they keep advancing. They keep making more and more money. So they want the entry level to move up as they move up in wealth. We all know money makes more money. So the more money you have sitting in the bank, that money is making money for you. Other people that go check by check, other people that hardly have any money in the bank, it's hard for that little bit of money to make more money for them. However, with a good mindset, with a good idea in your mind, it's still possible under capitalism to make a lot of money. But it's hard when inflation keeps going up and when it costs so much more and more just to get by and just to live in this world. Speaking on capitalism, I have no problem with capitalism because capitalism is supposed to be a free market where whoever has the best idea wins. Whoever has the best idea, that idea will flourish. However, what happens when all the ideas have already been taken? What happens when they're stealing the ideas from you because you can't get your startup company off the ground? What happens when everything becomes monopolized? In a lot of sense, I don't think we live in a capitalist world. It's kind of a totalitarian world in a lot of ways because other people are trying to control your every move. Other people are trying, once they gain enough money, then they move into power and control. And they no longer look at how much they're making because they just make enough. They would rather control the people underneath them and make sure they can't catch up to them. Because the people that own all the things in this world, they want to keep it to themselves. They don't want to share it. I think the best way to approach a capitalistic society is to almost build a ceiling on capitalism. To have a net amount of income you can make per year, and everything else has to go into charities. Everything else has to go in foundations. Or everything goes straight to the people around you and the people you employ. So if you make more and more money off your business, then you just have to pay the people more and more that work for the business. It's the idea that you can only take home so much money. And another problem with this is a lot of these charities are in the names. The charity name is attached to the person donating into the charity. So it almost becomes a second bank account for them. Or it almost becomes a virtue signal they use to tell themselves they're making the world a better place. While in reality, they're only using this money to not feel as greedy. They use their money and donate it so they don't feel like humans without a soul. They donate this money to tell themselves they're good people. The last thing I want to talk about with money, and my biggest problem with money, which leads into the community, I know we need money to pay the land tax. We need money in case emergencies happen with our people. We need money to take care of the people in some aspects. But a problem with the world today is money is the most important thing to everyone. Loyalty used to be more important than money. But somehow, in the last 200 to 300 years, they switched it, and they made money become the most important thing to everyone. And that's a game that people with a lot of money want you to play. They want you to think that money is the most important thing. Because if loyalty is the most important thing, then you're thinking outside the box. Then you're less likely to fall victim to the same things they fall victim to. Then you're less likely to chase money your whole life, but instead you would be chasing loyalty, and you will be trying to surround yourself with loyal companions. The next thing I want to talk about is freedom. And I said freedom is one of the most important things in this world, because what is life if you're not free? What is life worth if you gave up your freedom? Freedom is something hard to describe because it usually gets twisted by the elites or by the people around us. See, we go to wars, and wars are fought all over this world, and the U.S. in general tries to make freedom seem like something unique within the U.S. borders. But so many countries are free countries. But what does it truly mean to be free? There's a song, an old country song, that says, "Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose." Once you have nothing left to lose in this world, what do you have left? You still have your freedom, don't you? You still have your free will to do what you want, don't you? Freedom should be the ability to do whatever you wish as long as you don't interfere with the safety of yourself or other humans. You don't affect the rights of other humans. It should be being able to act, speak, or think as you want without hindrance or resistance. So, are we really free? Are we allowed to act, speak, and think like we want to, as long as it doesn't hurt other human rights? I feel like this line is forever getting pushed. What does it mean to be imprisoned? What would you consider the opposite of freedom is imprisonment? What would you consider imprisonment? Would you consider it having to go to the same location 5 days a week for 8 hours every day just so you can get the food and the shelter that you're given by probably the same place that you're going to work, or the money gets funneled right back? Would you say imprisonment is not being able to leave the constraints that you put yourself in? Even if you make this cell for yourself, aren't you still being imprisoned within this cell, within what your standards have become? So if you move up in this world and you get a bigger and bigger house, now you have to pay the rent for that house. Now you have to keep up with that house. Maybe you need to hire maids, or you need to hire other people to help you keep up with the maintenance of this house. Aren't you being imprisoned by the thoughts within your head that tell you these are your standards that you have to live by now? See, I know freedom isn't free. So in this discussion, I don't want to disrespect any of the men or women who died along the way so we could get our freedom. But a lot of times I look around at the world and I feel like we are disrespecting them. And we are disrespecting the idea of freedom. We are falling for conformity, and we are giving up the hopes for the people that stood up for freedom a long time ago, especially when we push towards a totalitarian government. That's the opposite of freedom. We lose freedom just to gain a little bit of protection. This was in the Patriot Act that was passed a long time ago. The government can look at everything within your phone. There's someone out there that knows every single word you looked up on the internet. There's someone out there that's monitoring you if they want to monitor you. Once you hit a list, they're on you. So what is true freedom if we're being watched constantly? If everything in this world has cameras all around? If there is someone sitting at a tall watchtower somewhere watching our every move and calculating what we will do next and trying to stop us from completing our end goal, what is true freedom? The next topic I would like to talk about, conformity. We all conform and we all live lives of comfort and security instead of being free like a bird. You look outside and you watch the animals, they're free. There's nothing holding them back. A lot of the animals out in nature, they move like the wind. They move like water. There is nothing confining them to do certain things every day or every hour. However, us humans, we end up putting ourselves in the boxes. We end up building schedules. And we give up our freedom for a little bit of conformity. No one wants to invent and create just to consume. Why would you want to spend your whole life just consuming? No one wants to invent and create no more. All we want to do is consume. Wouldn't you rather invent, create, and build new things instead of just falling victim to consuming? We think like tribes. We follow influencers, leaders, and celebrities and their opinions, instead of thinking for ourselves. This leads back to the hive mind mentality that we all have. We never make our own opinions on matters, but rather listen to what other people think and their opinions, and then we build our opinions based on the opinions of other people. In this sense, we are all becoming brainwashed to think like the people we're consuming. We're becoming a mob with a mob mentality with only one answer being right, instead of opening up our minds and realizing there can be multiple answers right to one problem. Instead of just thinking what someone else thinks has to be the right answer because of their status. We punish people who aren't like us. We do this all the time because we think conformity is good. We think it's better to be like a pack and to be all thinking alike instead of thinking outside the box, instead of having people go against our thoughts. So many people hate the idea of someone thinking differently than them, instead of being open to new ideas and new thoughts. The next topic I want to talk about is property. I was going to mention land and property when I was talking about freedom, because a lot of times I see them both linked. See, Native Americans, they used to see the land and nature as something sacred. They didn't see land and nature as something anyone can just come and own. They saw land and nature as something that no one truly owns. It's your job and you're given a gift to take care of this land and nature. And you take care of this land so your future generations can inhabit the same land that you used to live in. They treated animals and nature with so much respect because they understood how linked humans are with nature. They saw everything as spiritual. They even saw the animals had certain spirits. So to consume that animal is to gain the respect of that animal in certain ways. You earn that animal's respect by conquering it, and now you are consuming it. However, this is also why the Native Americans made sure they used every aspect of the animal so they didn't disrespect it. However, this isn't the main point. Land is like power and money. Few of us have it all. Now we live in safe shelter houses and have no connection to nature. We are happy with the small houses that we have. We are happy with the humble lives that we have, while other people take up all the land and destroy nature, while we just keep going to work every day and we don't focus on passing anything along to the future generations. Think about how much it costs now to own some land. Think about how much it costs now to buy a house within America. Why is this? Is it because big companies and big entities are buying up all the land within our country? You have businesses like BlackRock, Vanguard, and other big companies that buy up all the land, and then they hold on to the land. They watch the price go up, and they'll only sell it to these higher bidders or higher prices. But in turn, now these companies own all the land, and everyday individuals can't get access to land and houses like they used to. They act as though there's not enough land for everyone. However, if you do your research on your own, you'll find out there is enough land for us all to have a piece or a chunk of this land. But like I said before, and similar to money and power, a few seem to have it all, and the rest of us are stuck fighting for the little bit of the pie that's left. The next thing I want to talk about is wars. So many wars and acts of violence are because of land disputes. You think about the war that's going on right now because of the Holy Land. You have acts of violence which would be considered illegal in any other situation or circumstance. However, only in war do we celebrate and we allow these acts of violence. It's interesting. If you sign up for the military and you go to another country and kill their citizens who also signed up for the military, everything's fine. You may even be called a hero. However, if you come kill someone within your own country, even if they are just as bad, even if they are worse, that is murder, and you go to jail for that. You have to face the justice system. However, when it comes to war, there doesn't always seem to be a justice system. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. Whoever's the bigger guy beats the little guy. Whoever's the bigger country takes over the little country. There are so many gray areas, like providing for other countries while they are at war. A lot of times, there's countries that make money when other countries go to war. And that's because we send military aid, we send old supplies, and sometimes we even send our own troops to go help in other countries. And we sit back and we make the money as long as the other countries go to war. The idea of profiting off of war. I know many inventions and innovations were made during wartime, but in the end, no one truly wins at war. And there's a perpetual war that's been going on forever in history. You see, when the people that win and the people that lose accept defeat and accept their win, a clock begins where the people from the losing countries, losing tribes, losing side of the war are going to build up again. Whether it takes generations or it takes a couple years, when these people build back up, what do they want? They want revenge. And we live in a world where revenge is so common. So when one country loses in war, usually it's just a matter of time until they build back up, or until the future generations who had their fathers die in this war that they all lost anyway, they want their payback. They want their revenge. So then they end up going to war. And I said this in my song War. Sometimes the oppressed people end up winning the war. Sometimes the underdogs truly end up becoming the leaders. However, what happens in this instant, a lot of times, the oppressed people become the people that oppress other people. So it's like the cycle continues. The people that used to be oppressed finally defeat their oppressors, and then they become the oppressors. So it's kind of like when you have a bunch of dogs, and the little dog is a puppy, and he has to keep up with all the big dogs. But when the big dogs get older and older, and the puppy gets older, then the puppy's in his prime. He's no longer a puppy no more, and the old dogs can't keep up with this dog no more. And then the dog that's in his prime, a lot of times he becomes the alpha. Or when the old dogs pass away, if you get a new puppy, the cycle just continues. The dog that used to be the puppy, the country that used to be the little country, once it becomes the big country, now it's the country bullying the little countries. Fighting wars in other countries and destroying their land while your home is safe is always a sickening thought, and always a thing that will only hurt the people in the long run, because these things can't get unnoticed forever. So when other countries realize you're coming into our homeland, you're destroying our homeland, you're killing our people, while your homeland is completely safe. All your people are sitting home safe. And this also leads into the other thing I was mentioning, revenge. The people that became oppressed, the people that lost this war, the people that had their people killed and their homeland destroyed, when they rise up again, when they rebuild, they'll be looking for war again. And this is something that happened from World War I to World War II. And this happens so much within our history. You knock people down so much that then a new generation of people try to rise up again and go to war again. And it's just a matter of time till the new people beat the old people, and then the new group becomes just as bad as the old group were. And sometimes they become even worse. We have alliances like NATO that protect the people within them. But this idea, NATO, this can start a World War III one day. It's like a bunch of kids sitting at a lunch table and dividing into teams. You have one team that gets all the best of the best kids at the table. They're about to play basketball, and they own all the friends that are good on the basketball team all team up together. And then you have a bunch of kids that don't play basketball, and they're the only ones left without a team. It's only a matter of time till the people that don't play basketball form a team too. Now you're split into two different teams. And a lot of times, with enough years practice, or enough hard work, or sometimes the underdog can just get an advantage, what if the one team that doesn't play basketball every day does beat the team that is on the basketball team? It's possible. It's not like it's never been done before. But a lot of groups like NATO and a lot of these alliances can lead to wars down the line. Because there's a bunch of kids at a lunch table that say, well, if you punch our friend, we're all going to jump you. What if that one friend keeps bullying you for so much, but you can't fight him back because you have all of his friends that will jump you if you swing at him once? This can cause a lot of anger to the one kid at the table, and then he feels like he's the one being bullied. everyone else has a team and he's the odd man out. The next topic I want to talk about is military, and I apologize if the next topic went a little off tracks. But when it comes to military, there is a military that is needed for every country. This is one of the necessities of a country. So let us all bless the troops and all the people who served. When it comes to military, it can get complicated because we do need people to protect our country, and every country needs people to protect them. But a military-industrial complex can become very dangerous, especially when you're spending so much money on defense and spending money to aid other countries while they're at war. I believe we disrespect the troops in a lot of ways by letting the real criminals get away. And the real criminals would be the rich people that sit in elite positions that start these wars and force the poor to fight within them. The people that are pushing around and bullying the kids at the lunch table just because they know that kid can't fight back because all of their friends will jump them. Sometimes these are the real criminals. These are the people that know their actions will never be accounted for. They feel like they can get away with whatever they want. They feel like they can start a war and it won't come back to bite them because they're in such a position that they don't have to worry about their sons or daughters getting injured in this war. They don't have to send their sons off to war. All their sons are in safe colleges. They have enough money to pay off their sons if they ever get picked in the draft or something like that. While the people that are poor, the people that can barely get by, if your name is pulled in the draft, then you're forced to go to war. An example could be how we treated all those Vietnam veterans when they came back home. We treated the Vietnam veterans like they were all criminals. We treated the Vietnam veterans like what they did in war was so harsh, instead of pointing fingers at the people that started this war in the beginning. See, life can be so hard for veterans. It can be hard enough with PTSDs and coming home from a war that you may not actually wanted to do. You just felt like you were serving your country. You felt like at the time you were doing the right thing. And I don't believe we help these veterans enough. I don't believe we have enough programs to help these veterans when they come back from war. You got the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan, and both of them are so controversial. And so many of the wars our country, America, has been to ever since World War II. Every war after that war has been so controversial in so many different ways. Don't even mention the war on drugs. The war on drugs became a civil war because it destroyed families and it split families in half. A lot of these war on drugs went after people that were doing drugs within our own country or selling drugs within our own country. However, we must understand how did these drugs get into our country at the first place? Who got these people hooked on the drugs at the beginning? This is when I recommend you all look into the cocaine epidemic in the 80s. Look at how our own elites within this country spread drugs within our country a long time ago to get people in poor neighborhoods and people that were not economically stable stuck on drugs. It was an experiment for a lot of these elite people to see the effects of these drugs or to see what these drugs could do in a society. And now, years later, they go after the same people that they got stuck on these drugs, and they send them all to jail. They send them all to prisons. And these same people, a lot of times, are funding these prisons, have shares within these prisons. So they're making money the more inmates that are in the prison. A lot of politicians, they are doing the drugs. A lot of the elite people, they are doing the drugs. However, this war on drugs, it mostly went against people in low economic areas. It went against the lower class citizens in America, while the politicians were probably still doing their drugs behind the scene. And when I said the cocaine epidemic, I meant the crack epidemic in the 80s. Look that up if you don't know about it. The last thing I want to talk about in the military aspect and within the military topic is the idea that military bases are all over this world. We have nukes, an unknown amount, all over. We have them hidden in submarines, deep within the ocean. We have a powerful military with the U.S. military. And we have over 800 bases spread all over. But our biggest threat seems to be us destroying ourselves from within. It seems like this country is destroying itself from within more than it is defending itself from other countries. And that's just an interesting fact that I feel like a lot of people could agree with me on that. How many threats do we have outside of this country compared to how many threats do we have within this country? The next topic I want to talk about is education. This is another key aspect of our own lives and all of our lives that isn't always what it seems. How did education get here in the first place? Who formed the ideas of schools that go from kindergarten to 8th grade, and then high schools, freshman to senior, 4 years high school? School is a lot like conformity because you must conform to the rules within that school. And schools can be very hard for the outcast or the people that don't feel like they fit in within these schools. A lot of the schools as we know it today was formed in the early 1900s to prepare people to eventually become workers in this new industrial age. School is about waking up at a specific time every day, about paying attention within class and being able to pass the test. School is a structured program to prepare the youth to one day work in these industrial jobs. Within schools, there are so many social structures, so many cliques, and so many fake facades, whether it's with the students or with the teachers. Sometimes the tests and the education within the school doesn't make sense. And this leads into another video I did, talking about how wisdom and knowledge isn't always the same as education. They don't equate to being the same thing. Education just takes certain aspects of wisdom and knowledge and uses them. But pure wisdom and knowledge is like a fountain, an endless fountain that you can always come back to and drink. However, they only pick the things within wisdom and knowledge that you would need to work a 9-to-5 job, and they throw that into education. And they build the education system around the essential things that you need to be a good worker one day. Education is simply the regurgitation of the same information over and over again, and this same information is information that can be used to make you and mold you into a good worker. This is a question to consider. Do you think private schools, the schools that the elite send their children to, do you think they are teaching us the same things that are taught within our schools? Or do you think their education program is a little different than our program, considering the kids that go to that school aren't necessarily going to become workers for the rest of their lives? We all learn from the same books, so different teachers all tend to think within the same box. There are the same books that go around the whole country that we all learn from, which leads back to conformity. We are all conforming to the same story within history. We are all agreeing the same things are important for the education. And there's less and less teachers that think with creative freedom and think outside the box. But over time, becoming a teacher or professor, you become closed-minded and all your thoughts exist within a small box. College is for when you know what you want to do, but you need a better overview before you can start your career, or a buffer and an overview. So college is this buffer that is created to stop students from hopping straight into the career that they would like to pursue. They build this 4-year institution to knock off some of the students that can't afford to get through this program. A lot of the students that they know won't put in the time of 4 years before they are willing to go into this career. College acts as a giant buffer to weed out certain people that they don't want within these career fields. Like I said before, college is for people that know what they want to do or have an idea of what kind of person they want to become. A lot of people that are confused in life or lost in life, I probably wouldn't recommend college for them. I would say take some years finding out what kind of person you are and what interests you before just hopping into a college, because it might hurt you in the long run, or it might be a waste of your time. If you don't know your future plans, college isn't necessary. College is not for everyone. You only pay for a piece of paper in the end. A lot of the education that you get in college, you can get for free on the internet. A lot of college classes you can attend for free. However, the credits to get a degree, that's what we're actually paying for when it comes to tuition. You can bring a friend to your college classes, especially if you email a professor and tell them about it, or tell them ahead of time. College is a public property in a lot of ways. College is a place that's there to educate people. What we do as college students is pay for credits, and then all those credits that for those classes get added up to get us a degree in the end. However, college itself, most of the time you're just paying for a piece of paper. And that educational classes, you could attend it whether you can afford the piece of paper or not. However, this piece of paper becomes a symbol that you can put 4 years in to an industry, or put 4 years into a company one day. Is the idea that you are willing to put in enough work and you're in the pursuit of wisdom, and it can act as a buffer to allow certain people into a career field whether they have this piece of paper or not. I truly do worry about the future of classrooms, and I worry a lot of times that we use our kids and the children of this world as guinea pigs. When new ideas come in with education, and even with college majors and college degrees, the first couple of students of that class, or the first students that are exposed to these new techniques within education, become used as guinea pigs. And it takes years and a lot of data and a lot of research to decide whether these new techniques are actually working or not. And a lot of times, through these years, if they're not working, all those students that went through that program are now at a disadvantage. All these students that learned this new technique to do math, and then you find out statistically is not beneficial, all these students are now at a disadvantage. So a lot of time, the education system from the beginning was a guinea pig experiment to see, will this help the amount of people that enroll into jobs afterwards, and will this help make good workers in the long run? The next topic I want to talk about is child labor. Child labor is something so obviously wrong. We all know child labor is wrong. When we are young, we might want to work and make some money, but once you become an adult, you truly understand we must let the kids be kids. We must let the kids live the best childhoods that we can provide for them, because one day reality will hit them. One day they'll have to realize what it's like to live in the grown-up world, to live in the actual world. So while children are children, we must do our best to give them the best childhoods possible. And we must allow the kids to be kids. So this is a major reason why child labor is wrong. It's throwing them in the field in such an early age. People of power are exploiting the kids around the world. So many countries don't have good laws on child labor, and I'm not talking about the United States. Even though the United States buys a lot of products from these countries. So in a lot of times, we are participating in this act too, even if it doesn't happen within our borders. There are some U.S. companies that can probably still find loopholes to get child labor. If a company is a U.S. company, but all their buildings and all their industry is out of the country, how do we know those factories don't actually have child labor within them? I believe it's good for young adults to learn hard work, but I think this hard work should be taught within chores, taught within helping around the house, taught with learning hands-on skills by their parents, but it shouldn't be taught with factory work. That's a dangerous place to put a young child. And I don't even want to mention and get into Epstein Island and all the people on that list and all the people that use children as exploitation into other ways. But as we all know, there are a lot of evils in this world when it comes to people of power using children as leverage on other people. The next topic is slave labor. Like I said before, not the work that's done within U.S., but still, a lot of these products can be bought while in the U.S., or a lot of these parts are sent to the U.S. to then build products here. There are so many countries within this world that are still doing acts of slave labor. Places where people barely have any rights. You have the cobalt mines, which are horrible conditions for anyone to live. If you don't know what the cobalt mines are, I highly recommend you look them up, because cobalt is an essential material that is inside of all of our iPhones, all of our laptops, all of our computers, almost all technology that has above average performance, that can surf the internet, that can use all these functions, that have an LCD screen. A lot of this technology uses cobalt to work properly. Some of these people within these mines never had the chance not to be slaves. They were born into this slavery. They were born with their freedom stripped. Some other people get recruited as workers, and this happens in some Asian countries. They get recruited as workers to work on boats, but once they're on the boats, everything seems to switch. The person that hired the hirees seem to switch roles once they get on boats, and it becomes more of a slave and a master, and they'll threaten to be thrown overseas or injured if they don't work to catch these fish for them. So it becomes stuck in a slave labor environment where you have to work and follow the master to get off of this boat safely one day. These people need us to save them. These people who are being trafficked need people that are willing to stand up and speak on these acts and are willing to demand change within this world. We have so many people who are trafficked as sex workers. I believe they are also slaves, especially people in these third world countries that are used as sex workers, are gathered up, and they don't have control over whether they want to pursue this business or not. They're being forced within this business. A lot of times it takes a big organization to sex traffic people. And these people that control this organization are so corrupt. And a lot of times we like to think that they are people away from us, people that aren't around us, but it could be people within our own borders, people within our own country that are allowing these acts to continue and are actually the ringleaders of these organizations. The next topic I want to talk about, but not spend too much time on, is politics. And when I'm talking about politics, I'm speaking of corruption. Politics has been known to be corrupt for so long. Think about how much money it takes for someone to talk or spill the beans or switch sides. For some people, it doesn't take too much money, does it? And when you have these big organizations on both sides of the politics, a lot of these people do have a lot of money, and a lot of people that control the policies within our own country are the people that have the most money, not the people that we see up on the stage. A lot of the people that we can vote for are just the puppets of people more powerful than them. So when you think about this, everyone is playing both sides, and everyone in this world seems to have a price. The two parties seem to be two sides of the same coins. They act the same way because they are the same kind of people. They're both politicians. They're both in it for their own interest. And a lot of these politicians don't care about people like you and me. They don't care about the common folks. They are the lowest and dirtiest kinds of people, and they're the people in this world that are willing to make deals with the devil. You have companies like Amazon, Google, Apple. They seem to have more control than any one president. They seem to have more control than the judiciary branch. And this is because when companies can reach a certain power, a certain amount of income, they can use their income to influence other people and control other people. Federal agencies have leaders who last way longer than just 4 years. So you have these 3-letter federal agencies within our country that have presidents and leaders who have been in power a lot longer than presidents are, or the United States presidents have been. So when a new person gets put into the office, there are other people already whispering in their ear, well, I control this federal agency. I've been on this board for 20 years. It's almost like they are trying to manipulate the president of our own country to work for these federal agencies. A lot of times the presidents of our countries aren't in it for the everyday people. They're in it for themselves, and they're in it for the idea of America. They're in it to keep the GDP of this country as high as possible, and to make sure all these federal agencies are being liked by that person. Because if not, who knows what happens? We all know what happened to John F. Kennedy. What they stand on can change in a second, because they, the presidents and the elites, people that are the leaders of this country, the politicians, are merely just puppets for people that have more wealth than them, people that have more control than them. They are the same people that are here trying to distract us every day from what really matters in this world. They are the same people that are trying to push the idea that money is everything. Don't focus on loyalty. Don't focus on freedom. Just focus on the money. And if you can't get money, they'll give it to you as long as you keep backing up their ideologies. The next thing I want to talk about are the federal agencies within this country. You have these 3-letter agencies, which I'm not going to mention, within this country that seem to be so scary and so elite. They seem to have so much power over us, the everyday citizen. They are the ones that are supposed to protect us. But in a lot of ways, what they are doing are putting us, the American people, in danger. You have Julius Assange and Snowden. If you haven't heard of these people, you should really look them up. They are people that try to stand up for the American people, but were taken down by these three-letter agencies. You have MK Ultra, another experiment, a guinea pig experiment that went on during the 80s, I believe, maybe the 90s, but I know it was the 80s. There was these weird experiments that they done on American citizens, especially prisoners and especially outcasts that don't seem to fit within its societies. They wanted to see what certain drugs would do to these people, so they used American citizens as guinea pigs to check out these drugs. This was during a time of tension between America and the Soviet Union in a lot of ways during the Cold War, and we wanted to discover mind-reading techniques. We wanted to discover how to incapacitate other people and how to get away with murderous acts without it coming back to the people that actually committed those acts. If you don't know what MK Ultra is, I highly recommend you look into that. MK Ultra was also the root of starting a lot of revolutions in other countries. These three-letter industries, these three-letter federal agencies started revolutions in other countries to demolish their leadership and place a new leader that they support on that board. They wanted to take out the president that was elected by the people in these other countries and put in a president that supports the U.S., a president that sees more eye to eye to these federal agencies and the way they want this world to continue. These three-letter federal agencies have no accountability. There's nothing to account for the actions that they done. And a lot of times we don't learn about what they've done until years after it. This is something, like I mentioned before, JFK tried to warn us about. And so many people in the past tried to warn us about these secret societies that exist within the U.S. that don't have the interests of the U.S. citizens. They have their own interests in mind, and they have their own agendas. These federal agencies have an insane amount of power. Is there a fail-safe plan for them? A lot of these agencies were created through good ideas, but what happens if these agencies go bad, if they go evil? Who are going to stop them? Who's going to pull the plug on these industries and these agencies if there is no accountability? The scariest part of these three-letter industries is they can always cover up their mess. They can always clean up their mess and get rid of all the evidence. See, if the KGB or the Nazis had this kind of power, or when they did have similar powers, we as the American people and America as a whole stood up against it because we understood this was a totalitarian kind of power. This was anti-freedom, and it goes against everything that our country should stand for. However, when these federal agencies exist within our own country, a lot of time we just turn a blind eye. We don't really want to think about what they could possibly do, so we allow them to continue to exist in this world. However, it will only hurt the future generations and the future American citizens. The next topic I want to talk about is drugs. Drugs are a very complicated topic. Although I'm strong on freedom, I think it's hard for me to sit back here and say, I think people should be allowed to do whatever drugs they want under no circumstance. There are some very hard and strong drugs that can ruin people's lives, and it's very hard to talk to the family members of these people after they lost their lives or after they spun out on these drugs. You have Portland, Oregon, the place within America that freed every drug, all of them. And we can look at that experiment and see how it failed. This idea of allowing anyone to do whatever drugs they want, there are two ideas on it. There's the idea that some people are just going to keep doing these drugs until they're no longer here, and the people that don't fall victim for that will see what happens to those people, and they will know, or they will tell themselves, oh, I'm never taking these drugs because I don't want to end up like them. On the other hand, you have people that would have never taken these drugs now taking these drugs just because they are legal. However, I do think weed should be legally or legal federally, because in a lot of ways I think it's more effective and it can be safer than alcohol. There's less side effects. However, the reason weed wasn't legal for so long is because it was harder to control. You didn't get the tax that you get when you sell alcohol at liquor stores. The government wasn't getting their portion of the income when it came to weed. And that's why legal weed is only the weed that you can buy from dispensaries a lot of times. Because they want to make sure they can get as much money as they can when these new industries pop up. Next, some people believe hallucinogenics and psychedelics should be legal. And I believe there's some work on that, and there's some ideology behind that does make sense, but more research should be done. And whether it's weed, hallucinogenics / psychedelics, if these drugs do become legal, they should be used as almost a therapy drug. They should be used as a way to help people realize what they should be doing in their lives, to free them from any trauma that exists within the person, but they shouldn't end up falling victim to these drugs or to these hallucinogenics and psychedelics. It's like what I said at the beginning of this podcast. Everything in moderation. When you take too much of anything, you end up falling into a rabbit hole. Addiction exists because what you had last time felt so good that now you're going back to it again. But what addiction leads to is someone needing more and more and more of it just to get the same feelings that they had previously. And it ends up destroying lives, and it ends up leading people down these horrible paths where they're spending all their income on these things that they used to just spend a small portion of cash on. I strongly believe drugs should stay illegal for anyone under 18. And maybe between 18 and 21, if they do become legal, it should be limited. Like I said before, it should be used as a way to help people from their trauma, to help people with traumatic experiences, and to help people free themselves from the confinements of their own mind. But it shouldn't be used as a drug just to get you by every single day, because it ends up becoming like the water you drink, like the air you breathe. It becomes another necessity that you need. But unlike water and unlike air, it's going to cost you so much money, and it's actually going to hold you back in the long run. Not just because of the money, but because you're stuck in this mind state all the time. And it's no longer freeing you, it becomes the jail cell. It becomes the thing that confines you. You only feel okay when you're off of this drug. You need this drug to feel like the normal version of yourself, while it should be the other way around. You should feel like the normal version of yourself when you're sober. It's a problem if you need drugs or alcohol to feel like the normal version of yourself. Like I said, drugs can help with trauma. Drugs can help with mood problems, with depression, with anxiety, etc. But everything in moderation. Too much of anything turns into a bad thing. Drugs definitely shouldn't just be thrown around for everyone to try either. People with mental illness, people with serious mental issues, maybe they shouldn't necessarily be under these drugs. Some people, drugs just aren't good for them, even if it's just simply weed. This can lead them down the wrong path. This can give them dangerous thoughts that they never had before. And some people just don't need to be thinking more about their lives. They have enough going on already. And these extra thoughts will only lead them down a downward spiral. The next topic I want to talk about is mental health. Just like drugs are a spectrum, one word to categorize so much, the same is with mental health. Mental health is a spectrum. Mental illness exists all over this world, and the first step is accepting that it does exist. We can't pretend like mental health doesn't exist. Personally, I don't think pills are the answer for mild cases of mental health. However, I'm not an expert in this field. When it comes to depression, anxiety, and existential crisis moments, I feel like there are other things that could help, like meditation, like picking up a new hobby, like going to your happy place, but not falling for the pills. Because so many people in this world are just stuck on the pills. It becomes a habit, another thing, when in moderation it can be okay to need an Advil or ibuprofen, but when you're stuck on these pills every day just to get by, it becomes a dangerous habit for you. I understand the use of pills for more serious conditions, however, like people with schizophrenic conditions, people with bipolar conditions, people with multiple personality disorders, and other serious causes of depression, anxiety, and for mental breakdowns. You must truly always protect your mental health because your brain doesn't last forever, and the damage that you do to your brain now may have a long-term effect to you. Mental health issues can lead to a lack of confidence, self-doubt, and they can lead people into doing alcohol and drugs. See, we must watch out for our brothers and sisters, our fellow humans with mental illness, and we must not allow them to be manipulated. There are so many people with mental illness that become manipulated by other people. We must act against this, and we must stand up for the people with mental illness and not allow them to become manipulated by other people. There are so many cases of mental illness that is going on today. There are so many people that are so stuck on their ideology that they can't think of other thoughts. There are so many people that can't see reality for what it really is. They have their own reality within their own head, and they can't see what the rest of the world is seeing. Just because you think this is reality, if your reality doesn't match up with no one else in the world, you must understand your reality is a little shifted. The way you think is a little off from everyone else. It's not necessarily wrong, like we were talking about. Shouldn't conform to everyone else's beliefs. It's okay to think outside the box. But there are some foundations to reality we must all set our feet in. There are some foundations to reality that we must all stand on to make sure that we're all living in the same reality day after day. The next topic I want to talk about is blackmail. People who treat people with mental health problems are horrible, especially sometimes these social workers. You also have nurses who treat elders like they're less than humans. They treat elders like they are worthless and less than them. I've seen this a lot of times. Nurses that should be an empathetic field for people to work in, but instead, these nurses don't seem to have a heart. These nurses don't seem to actually care for their patients. Instead, they only care about the check. They only care about the money. That's just a little bit of power and control to be a nurse or to be a doctor. Imagine what these people would do if they had a lot of control. And a lot of times that's one of the problems with this world. People are given power and control, and you can see what they do with it, whether it's people on a small scale or people on the big scale. And that's a very sad thing we can look and see. These people with power and control, and the percentage of people that have a little bit of power and control, what they do with that. There are people out there that have intel and data on everyone, like I mentioned before. You have intel and data on you and me, and these are the same people that use this intel and data to blackmail other people. An example would be the phone companies like Apple knowing politicians' secrets, like knowing what that politician texted the other politician last night. And through this, companies can manipulate other people and blackmail other people. When we were talking about that island earlier, the Epstein Island, that probably wasn't the first island like that existed. A lot of these horrible rituals that exist within this elite society of these rich and powerful people, they use blackmail to keep people in check, to keep people working for the secret societies or for following these rituals. They use blackmail. A lot of rich and elite people that know each other's secrets, so they all become bonded within their own horrible deeds that they did. So there's this idea that I have that there's a bunch of elite people out there that all have horrible dirt on one another. And that's how they all seem to stay in line and they can all work with each other because they know deep down they are all the same horrible monsters. And if one of them breaks free, that person could let the truth out or let the leak out. So they all stay in line, they all do what each other tells them to do because they don't want their dirt to be leaked. I would highly recommend, if you're listening, you don't ever do that weird thing with these elite people. You don't ever fall for that trap. If someone texts you about the Illuminati, about some secret society out there, you tell them, I'm not interested, or you don't respond, you block that person. A lot of things in this world are tests to see whether you will take that first bite, whether you'll play the game with them. If I was you, I would never get on that lot, or on that yacht with them. I would never go up to the rooftop with someone to talk about a new job interview, or a new promotion, or a new idea within the firm. I would never do drugs around people that I don't know. These could easily be traps set by elite people, people more powerful than you, that are trying to control us every day, and they may be around us every day. These are people that want to blackmail us and get us to do the same dirt that they did, so they can almost feel bonded to you for doing that same dirt. Another topic I want to talk about is control. If you can't tell by now, all of this ties back to that first thing we talked about, power, but more specifically, control. If you control the people, you control the world. So the key to them is to manipulate the masses. They believe if you control the present, then you control the future. If you control the future, then you can always go back and rewrite the past. They can choose what people can see and what people can't see. They can create illusions of choice, when in reality, there isn't really a choice. An example of this is when we go into the superstore or supermart, and we go to buy goods or grocery store or at the grocery store, a lot of these goods all lead back to these same few companies. So you may think you have a bunch of different options of chips or cookies or different types of chicken or hamburger that you can choose from, but all these different brands are just hiding the illusion that they're all interconnected, and they all lead to only a few brands. There are billionaire leaders out there who are such control freaks that they are surrounded by yes men and yes people. They never heard the word no in so many years, and they push their opinions on the consumers and on the people of this world, and they assume they are always in the right. And what this does is create a hive mind society with a lack of freedom. See, if you think you have control of your own life and your own freedom, just think, with all the money in this world, where can you really go to escape? Where can you escape from these people? If they are everywhere, if they own everything, if they control everything, where is it that you can go to truly escape? Nowhere. You have to build something new within this society that already exists. And this leads back to building a community from scratch. Creating your own source of food, creating your own garden, having your own livestock, working for yourselves to maybe create a product that you sell back into society to make money, or some of the people have to keep working within the society, but when they come home to a community that all honor them for going to work and continuing to pay off this land tax. Creating a society or a community of people where they care more about the people than the income. They care more about freedom than money. Let's talk about the root of evil. Mankind has been making deals with the devil for as long as time. We know something is wrong, but we accept it anyway, and we get what we want in the end. We just accept this thing because we feel like it will benefit us. But we don't truly get what we want in the end, just in what we think is the end, just in the meantime. But after this lifetime, to make a deal with the devil, I don't think you get the best outcome. See, people are willing to sacrifice something down the line to receive something now in return. This comes with partying. This comes with unprotected sex with a random stranger. This comes with people that are willing to make sacrifices, like there's rituals where people harm other people just to be initiated within these secret societies. And all of this are examples of doing something now and you're hurting yourself later down the line. You're hurting your growth. You're hurting the best version of yourself that you could become because you'd rather do something that you enjoy today, that you don't think about tomorrow. See, people like what feels good in the moment, but they don't like to think about the side effects that will come back to bite them, or the side effects that these things will cause. Probably what it feels like to make a deal with any record label, any big company, or any organization, especially when they have a say in your appearance. So you make a deal with these people to get quick cash now, to get a quick promotion now, to become a leader of this company or organization. But then you lose your individuality. You become a puppet for this record label, for this company, or this organization. People give up their freedom. They give up their freedom of being free like a bird just to pick up new responsibilities and have to work for other people. There are people out there that make deals with other countries, people within our own borders that will make deals with other countries just to get a quick dollar, even if it hurts their own home country. Think about how we changed the gold standard to a U.S. standard, a U.S. dollar standard. What is our country's money truly backed up by now? I like to think what it was like when people gave up their simple lives to work for the Industrial Revolution and to become workers in these giant factories. They probably saw it as a quick way to make a lot of money now, but they didn't think about their future generations and how their kids and their kids' kids would be stuck living the same lifestyle they have to live because they gave up their basic farm life to work for this big factory. Or people that are the first couple of people that were willing to send their wives, their lovely wives, into a work field, not thinking this is going to have a ripple effect. And now all of your daughters and granddaughters will now have to work for the rest of their lives just to get by and just to make money. When so many people are working within any country, the amount of money that country can provide each worker, or that company, the amount of people working in the company, that company can now only pay each of you guys so much. So when you have more and more people joining the workforce, it actually lowers the value of each individual that works within that workforce. See, this is a lot of times the root of evil. The idea of dragging other people into your own hell to fight their own demons that you couldn't conquer within your lifetime. And that's why they say the root of all evil is money, because it goes far, far back when the first people sold out other people for money, sold out their traditions, their family values, what they should have stood for, just to get something shiny and golden. Finishing up, got a couple topics left. The next one I want to talk about is uniting the states. See, I've been talking a lot of bad and negative aspects, but we can also use a platform like this, like the internet, to express ways to make a change. But I just thought first we should recognize the problems that do exist and what needs to change and the root of a lot of these issues. Tackling such big topics is never simple, and the middle ground must usually be met because both parties, both sides, can't always have it their way. When you look at important topics and how most people feel towards those topics, it's usually not that different from one another. There are more similarities between every two human beings than there are differences. We can't lose the USA, and we can't split into two different countries. A civil war will do us no good. It will cause a divide within our people, and we will all lose economically. The people who work and live life by the rules, they shouldn't be punished for the outcomes of the other people that are making horrible deals and horrible conditions for all of us. There are way more of us, the everyday people, than the people that hold all the control and all the power. And we, the everyday people, must band together. We must stand as one, and we must not let them divide us. We must work together and put our differences aside so we can all pursue a common goal. And that goal should be to make this world a better place, to make this country a better place, and to provide a better foundation for future generations. The next thing I want to talk about is world peace. If we can figure out a way to unite the states and have peace in our country, the next goal should be world peace. I know this is easier said than done, but we also can't wait till it's too late. It seems like the only way for world peace is aliens, but this isn't true. They just want the idea that that if there was an alien invasion or something like this, all the humans within this world can realize, wow, we're more similar than the aliens, so then we would all band together. That makes me feel weird. Why do we need an external force to allow us all to realize us humans are all similar? We are all made in the same image. We all come from the same source. Why do we need an outside entity to come in for us to band together? Another idea I have with the idea of an alien invasion one day, I could see it as an idea to create a central government. And I'm not supporting a central government, a government that controls and sets policies for the whole world. Instead, I propose something of a world peace, where everyone is still their own country. Each country has their own culture and their own individuality, but all these countries can come together, shake hands, and agree that if they work together, it would be better for all the people around the globe. Like I said, why would we need another more superior species to come to this world just for us to band together? Can't we see now that humans aren't that different from one another? There are internal problems, and peace must be solved within these internal problems within these countries before we can focus on external peace between all the countries, and world policy can begin one day. But I don't think the world policy should be like one central group that controls the whole world. I think it should be more like this. We have agreements where we will no longer go to war with one another. We will all be advancing in this way of life. And this way, and only this way, I think the whole world can become enlightened and can evolve as a group and become a better world every passing day and every passing generations. No more wars, no more harm from one country to another country. We all have a say, we all have an equal role, and we're all in the pursuit to make the world a better place. It shouldn't be policies based on economics. It shouldn't be policies that build a hierarchical structure. It should be policies that help everyone and try to make this world a better place for everyone. I believe there is nothing greater than world peace one day. Space travel might be cool, to be able to go to other planets and to start colonies on other planets. But how can we start colonies on other planets and ensure that those colonies go well if we can't even achieve world peace on our own planet? I believe we have to achieve world peace on this planet before we can go out to another planet and try to pursue imperialism and start new colonies. I'll take world peace over having huge weapons or even industrial revolution. I would rather have us all live in a more basic and simple world where we all go back to the old roots, but at least had world peace and not have wars around this world. How do you guys feel about that? Another topic is escaping rules. This is an interesting approach to escape many of our worldly problems. We escape the rules that we have and be free to do what we want as individuals. To escape the rules, I mean we don't need a system, like I said before, where one person is a boss of another person. Almost a system where you don't need policing one day. You don't need other people to tell you what is right and wrong. You can build a world or a community with everyone that's so focused on a common goal that people aren't stepping out of line. People aren't going against this common goal. This may seem as ideal as world peace, and it may seem anarchist to other people, and to others it seems like the only answer. We can't have a hierarchical system where these countries control these countries, and these countries have all the say. There's a lot of problems within the UN because 5 countries seem to control the whole world within the UN. We see people do this all the time. Some people seem to hold all the power within a friend group or within a clique, and the rest of the people just end up becoming followers of the few leaders. So many people are scared to quit their job, to stop their routine, perfect lives, and to go chase their true dreams within this world, to go do what they truly pursue. We are stuck in boxes, we are trapped in our roles within society, and we aren't willing to think outside the box to become better people. However, I do think we should go back to the old ways, and we shouldn't have no boundaries at all. Certain roles are good for the structure of the society, but a lot of these roles, as worker bee and just going to work every day just to make money and no idea what they truly want to do with their lives, it puts them in a box. People are scared to be what they truly want to be in this life. And they need to change things about them to be what they want to be. And that shows you that they aren't truly happy with themselves. If they truly believe themselves that they could just become these things, then they wouldn't have to physically change themselves in a lot of ways. A lot of ways, it starts spiritually. It starts mentally. Within your own head, you can reconstruct your brain into what you know is the best thing. You can rebuild your brain from the ground up and give it new ideologies, give it new ways of thinking, expand philosophically, and make changes within this world. I do believe to be free and to do what you want would be better for this world. But everything must still be illegal, and everything must follow that golden rule. Do unto others as you wish would be done to you. There are shady areas, though, where freedom becomes complicated, because a major part of this whole thing is protecting the future generations and ensuring that the world will still be here in the future. I believe world peace is more ideal for mothers and elderlies and mentally disabled people. World peace could make this whole world feel like a safer place for everyone within it. The last topic I want to talk about was one of the first topics I talked about, the community. I want to start a community one day, a community that's completely off the grid. There will be no emphasis on a specific religion, but instead it will be a way of life. There will be no emphasis, and there would be no doing drugs within this community. Sex will be a sacred ritual between man and woman within this community, and sex will not be something we do just for fun. Sex will not be something that we do in big groups. It will be a sacred ritual between man and woman. I believe that living off the land and taking care of one another and taking care of our animals would be a good way to start off this community. I feel like this community would free us all from the drama of the rest of the world. The responsibility for taking care of farm and animals will teach us all how to become better people and how to look after the community in the long run. Like I said before, we could create goods and maybe sell them outside of the community to provide income for the community. It would be great if this community became self-efficient, had clean water, had plants in a garden, had work like woodwork, building hammocks, and have a surplus of food. One of the main priorities of this community, like I said in the past in this podcast, would be to take care of any children and to let them live a pure, good life. To get good women to become all the teachers, the nurses, and to become the best mothers possible within this community, so all of the children can one day become the future leaders. The men would probably be doing a lot of work within the community, like hunting, taking care of the animals, building up this community, building houses every day, and just becoming protectors and the defenders of this community. It would be great to have a place where everyone's working for a common goal and that there's a lot of positive energy. This community is a lot like what other countries and other societies wanted to become in the past. This community reminds me a lot of what America wanted to become. So it'd be great to start fresh and to start with a chunk of land and a good group of people and to start a fresh community one day where we're all in the pursuit to make this world a better place and to pass something sacred down to the future generations. Instead of tricking the future generations into playing the same evil games that we play and spreading the root of evil. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this Truth, Love, Freedom podcast. I know it was a long one. I know it jumped here and there a couple of times, and some of the topics seemed off topic. But I thank you all again for tuning in. I hope you all have a great day, and God bless you all.